Good afternoon, everybody. Eminent panelist and my chair, Dr. Naresh Shetty, Dr. Venkatramanam Srinivas. Thanks for being here. It's great to see somebody who's an expert in the cerebral area going to be looking into what I'm going to talk about, which is all about proposing what has to be the perception in the mind. And it's nice to know that there's also an orthopedic surgeon who's right now more to do with academics, who's also trying to see if I get into some mobility with ideas. And my co-speaker, Srinivas, whom I've known for some time. Lovely to have you all this afternoon. Like Dr. Venkatramana said, the post-lunch session is the most challenging. I like to see if I keep most of you all awake this afternoon, and I think I've achieved my goal. Branding is actually a lot to do with just one word which is used, and there's a subsect of it, which is marketing. But the two are so intricable, but today when you look at it, it's a matter of time when you get to see what's the differentiation. Marketing is branding. A time will come, but it will be obsolete, that accelerating this trend is the decline of selling. What I mean by this is, no more would you as an organization go forward and sell. You will have to create a proposition in the minds of the consumer that you will be able to attract, or you will create a force which is called the pull. If you don't do this as a profession, as a function, selling is slowly sinking like the Titanic. Nobody sells today. Most is actually bought. Brand greatly facilitates this process. Branding pre-sells the product user. Old maxim, nothing happens until somebody sells, something is being replaced by now. Nothing happens until somebody brands something. What it actually means is, the consumer today is already perceived if he's going to an individual as a brand, or he'll go to an institution as a brand. And I'm trying to draw the relevance to this and what it means to healthcare and what it means to individuals who work in healthcare. Why branding and why it's so important that it's a topic of discussion in an hospital administration program which is being conducted today of an association is trying to spearhead what changes need to be brought to improve the lives we touch. The main thing in branding is to try to understand how do we differentiate ourselves. That is what branding came about. Initially when branding started, it was a herd of cattle which had to be identified from a crowd, and there was a brand fixed to it. As time went forward, the brands were changed by trying to identify what each brand stood for. And from a commodity to a powerful brand, the continuum changes differently based on where you are. For example, you need to first identify whether you're in the Stone Age or in the present generation or in the Ice Age, what is your USP? So the first most important thing is to identify what is the USP which you are in. After that, you need to really find out, can you own it? After you own the USP, the challenge would be finding the right strategy to help your brand gain a competitive edge. That means that it's not easily copied. So you might have competition which is aggressive, stiff against you, but you still can hold on to your USP for some time, is the issue in the short term and in the long term. But what you need to understand in this is, after you are able to create something which is desirable, which attracts others, are you able to defend it? So finding a differentiator that is relevant to your customer is whether it's desirable and if it's defensible is the next step of trying to create your brand. But hold on, let's try to understand what's happening here. The simple thing is, if you don't hold on for too long, you snooze, like the post-lunch session we're going to have, you might lose your ground. The challenge is, if you snooze, you lose, and how do we go forward with it without actually slipping away that your USP is not out of your sight and out of the mind of your consumer? That's the most difficult challenge. Now, there's a McKinsey report which actually says, it's the only report which is available in public domain on what is the quotient of a return on investment and a shareholding value on branding. It says if it's a strong brand, it holds about 2.6 as a TRS index. A weak brand is about minus 6.2. What's the differential? A 365% better upwards progress if you're a strong brand. Now, most products which are not brands are made in factories, most probably 99% of them in China. But the issue is, what is made in a factory is a product. The brand is made in the minds of a consumer. What you build in your mind is a positioning. Whatever said and done, if there's a product launched by this brand, everybody wakes up and takes notice. It hits a social media, it hits every other tangent it has to do, it leverages itself. Probably it's like the Salman Khan of Bollywood, where it's got a blind following, maybe not much of use, but it creates a premium positioning in the mind of the consumer. Now, the only way you can actually position your brand totally different from the way you position yourself in healthcare to other entities is That single differentiation or idea which actually creates you. Only then you can charge a premium. There's another option. If you don't want to charge a premium, you want to be qualitative, you can sell cheap. But if you sell cheap, you will be branded so. So the question here is, between a commodity and a brand, in the commodity continuum which you're there, from one extreme or to another extreme on a dichotomy, are you a commodity in healthcare or are you a brand in healthcare? What makes your patients come to you is most important to be defined today. You could be a salt which was created, or you could be also a Tata Salt Light, which finally it says that why do you have to buy a Tata Salt Light when you get salts which are commodities in the marketplace and you have a branded salt? It comes out as a certain value the consumer sees more than what he sees in the Kirana shop. Now, if you do not manage your brand, somebody else will do it for you, and that somebody else most likely will be, if you do not know, your competitor. Now the challenge is, how do you build a strong brand even at a low price? Now a low price doesn't mean it's cheap. There's a big difference being cheap and at being lowly priced. There are brands which have successfully done it. If you look at some of these brands, to name a few, they've all actually created a position. For example, Toyota is known for the Kanban method, which is basically a time manufacturing system where goods are bought across only when there's an assembly line which executes for a vehicle to go out, cutting down costs and actually delivering lesser vehicles. Amazon, when you look at that tag, which is actually a smile from an A to Z, moved everything to the online space. What did Walmart do? It did retailing in a large scale, but in small towns. What did Southwest Airlines do? They were just plain smart. They just realized that you don't have to buy a 737, a 747, and a 777, and like the Indian government sell it at one-fifth the price after 5 years. They just bought 737s right along for their entire stock which they needed, or the inventory of aircraft. It becomes easier to maintain them. It becomes easier to be a pilot on them. Simple scheduling, simpling airtime. That's what they did. Now, I'll touch upon two topics today on what in healthcare will define branding. So I just have a question before I take this forward. I know that a lot of you all from across India come in from various hospitals. I just wanted to ask one question. How many of you all are from hospitals which are NABH and NABL accredited, including me? NABL and NABH accredited among people in the chair? So I see close to about 25 to 30 hands up. Next question, how many of you all are from the quality department of these hospitals? There were 3, 4 of them. Now the issue here is, can quality be a differentiator? Is the question today. Can quality really be a differentiator? The question is, can quality be branded and put forward and create as a differentiator? Let's try to understand the next few slides of mine. Will I be able to wake up a couple of people who are from these NABH and NABL hospitals and get them to drive what I'm talking about? The purpose of any branding exercise is to develop a differential brand. Critical if your differentiation is taken up by a competitor. Yes, if it's very critical if it can be taken up by a competitor, then actually you're not competing. You don't have an USP. So what you get to, you have into doomsday. You don't really have something which you can differentiate. What is your killer differentiate? Is quality. That means you are invited to play in a field which is slightly better than everybody else in town. But are you actually playing? Let me take a reference to something else happened recently which caught everybody's eyeballs, is the FIFA. Now there were 196 teams playing for FIFA, like the number of hospitals which have NABH and APL and the number of hands I saw going up. The issue is even India plays in FIFA, but it all matters where are you playing, where are you positioned. So the number of teams which qualified for the FIFA, for the World Cup, are only 32. Were we there? No. So there's a body like AHA which actually creates a game where you play for a cup and there are 196 teams playing and 32 qualify for it in Brazil, but what happens to the team? Now if you suddenly look in this, India is 154th, and then you realize that 2 other countries called Grenada and Belize, probably we don't even know where they are, but they're slightly better than us. But the issue is, you might be an hospital which has NABH and NABL, but what has it done for your patient? Have you created something post your NABH and NABL that the patient starts perceiving to see the value because you have, or he's walking into town and suddenly he sees exceptional quality, attention to detail, superior craftsmanship, excellence. I've got NABH, I've got the highest standard, I've got NABL, the highest standard. Then he suddenly looks back and he finds there are other 40 guys who are actually putting up their hands and saying we all have it. The simple reason is getting yourself branded on things which can be bought or can be achieved by everybody else does not create a brand proposition unless that particular thing changes what is the very essence of the consumer. The very essence of a consumer in healthcare is not just getting standardization or quality, but what will that lead to? So you're just actually one among many, but you're being considered, not yet selected by the prospect. Why you're considered? You're one among those 192 who played for the FIFA. That means you're a commodity, if you're one among many. Now, everybody stands for quality. That's a great thing, but what's the difference if everybody stands for quality then? Then actually no one actually stands for quality, because you're playing in an even field. Think about it. If everyone stands for quality, there's no differentiation. What will happen? People will buy what is cheaper, because everybody says we're all NABH and we all have the same price list. So what's the difference? I choose who actually offers a certain quality at a lesser price. Now, you'll find these vision statements which will go all around, which says ISO, ISI, NABL, NABH. They're all driving great, but we're all driving the same lane. We draw the quality lane, we drew the quality tube, we listen to the quality tube, we use the quality card. But what does it create for a band? There are 1,600 laboratories in India with NABL accreditation. So how big is this difference? Is it commonplace? I think so. 20% are government laboratories in this. That means how do you stand yourself in 1,600 by saying an NABL accredited lab? Consumer says every lab I went to was NABL accredited before I came to you for a second opinion. 222 hospitals have NABH. There are 19 in the last count in Bangalore. I'm not sure how many are there today. Probably this list got added. Now, if you're actually an NABH accredited hospital or an hospital which is only communicating on that which is quality, but not really communicating what your consumer perceives that quality is supposed to do. NABH is great, NABL is great. If I'm not going to accept that fact, probably there's something wrong with me. But what does that actually finally do to the consumer who walks in? That is the internal consumer of the hospital, and the consumer who's the external consumer is most important to understand. Now, if you have great quality, why you're not at a premium of 15, 10, 5 or less? The first thing most of us at hospitals do, and the challenge hospital administrators have before we fix the tariff, is to do a comparison of 40 other competing hospitals, what are their tariffs, and let's take a mid-path, or let's get close to the guy who's leading the pack. Now, the issue is, why don't we have anybody looking at this perception order? Why are we pricing ourselves against competition if we are not putting ourselves saying we have an USP, we have a differential, and that is going to be bought by the consumer? Is very important to understand as we go forward. Sometimes back, companies started declaring war on poor quality. That's a great thing. Most people came in, they bought in a lot of tools, courses, books, pranks, protocols, everything. They did succeed. They did an extremely great job. But what's the flip side? From the guy who's right on top for quality and the guy who's just got, the difference is so irrelevant, nobody's going to see it. That's the biggest challenge. The issue is, post that, we're only coming in for a review. We actually don't get to see what's happening in terms of the consumer who walks into the enterprise. Now, quality has become something so easy for competitors to copy. Let's take an example of a couple of things. If the same breadth you do is what your competition does, for example, a thumb reader or a MRI, which is 3 Tesla, it's just the money you have and the access to it that anybody can really buy it. But what are you really doing out of it? Are you improving precision in diagnosis, putting out your outcomes of diagnosing that the consumer gets to see is most important, not the dollars and cents which you put to buy the equipment? And is that what are you communicating is very important to understand. The machines don't have a story. It's the man being the machine and the expertise which has to put in the story. If you have the money, anybody can buy the expertise. Good news is, most of our competitors are on the same boat. Like, we had about 35, 40 hands who went in for NABH, NABL. I mean, there's so many people in the same row. I saw 5 hands in the same row in the 7th row from here. That means everybody at NABH, everything. Let's try to understand what we are to do with it. We need to understand first, how do you brand? You have an USP, you have a product, you're trying to create a proposition in the mind of the consumer. Most important thing is to understand who's my consumer. Create a target group, try to understand what is he be affected by, why will he come to you, from which geography he comes, what's his age, what is his ability, how do I create affordability, accessibility and awareness. Now what are their needs? Can they help me in brand building? If they can, what will compel them to? Next, have we tried out? My simple submission is, there are 2 clinicians here, quite a lot of them in the audience. The only thing you can actually brand an hospital consistently and be up there for the consumer to say you seriously is medical outcome, medical outcome, medical outcome. If you don't put out your medical outcome and keep putting out your machines, believe me, you've got you don't have an USP because the same machine is being sold by the same vendor who's got the stalls out there trying to entice you to buy, saying X bought it, so why doesn't Y want to buy it? You need to understand what comes out of it. Now the patient is right in the center of this fulcrum. You attract a patient who walks in, it could be A to D, and can we see if the patient can talk back to the consumer who's there, which could be E to an H. So how do you use your own patient to talk about what you created for your patient is most important. So step into the shoes of the patient before you start a campaign. Try to create a brand entity which is around the patient who's actually whom you're treating. Step into shoes and try to pretend to be a patient for some time. Go through the touch points. Now I'll take about a couple of examples which we did, and I'll take up a simple case study. We thought we should try to put up India on the global map. We did a story where we had 3,000 of our breast cancer outcomes put up for a study, and we had a recognition from Harvard, which actually said we were very close to the US average, though the Indian average of breast cancer outcomes across was only 60%, and we had 4 publications in the last 2 years of editions of the HBR. Now, the point is, if you have a good story, you get a visibility which happens, which should be written. Now, the second case study, after we did this, people said, okay, it's a study you have done, but if I'm a patient, I'd like to hear from another patient. Now, the biggest issue in cancer today is people believe cancer is a stigma. If I have to be talking about cancer, I need to get people to come forward, look at a camera, take a shoot, come for a press meet, communicate to others, I've overcome cancer. It's something I can defeat. I've just taken cancer because we are right now in the last 5-6 years in the field of cancer care. Now, the stigma associated with big C, we try to figure out how do we break it. We worked around the clinicians who are in the busy practice to understand what would I give them. We worked for a year and realized we managed to get 8 to 10 testimonials from doctors. Now, over a period of 1 year, 8 to 10 patients would like to face up and say that I've got cancer and I've conquered it or I've beaten it. The purpose was not served. There was an attempt. We didn't go to the next level. Now, we thought we'll go into what everybody is today in social media. The more and more we see print is dying out. There's a death of a newspaper called DNA just a few weeks back. There's a death of a newspaper as we talk today in some boardroom. Now, how did SM come to the rescue is we tweaked around the rage. I'm just giving a case study for you to understand what really can be done on branding, which is a rage around a selfie, which is actually somebody taking a photograph, and we tweaked it to saying that how do we capture moments of a person, and we created a category called Self-V, which is actually a video format, which the V stands for video and also stands for victory. So we created the property, we created a survivor story. The survivor story had a game in between where it says the brand architecture showed about play. Now what we did, we started on a cancer survivor day, we did the normal things which everybody does, but the biggest challenge was what Dr. Venkatramana said, what everybody feels. Have we spent a lot of money in trying to bring the brand? What is the marketing department looking for? A few crores to build up a brand. So the challenge was, how do I do this entire thing by getting people who will buy to the cause and without a rupee as a budget indicated, do a barter, do a co-branding, do a CSV, and do a campaign which will benefit. So we got brands which are very aspirational. We thought let's create a campaign which is aspirational. So we brought brands because we wanted to create gratification of the person who would come forward and say, I got cancer, so what? Let me put up my story there. So we got some of the most aspirational brands, like from Harley Davidson to a Louis Vuitton to an Armani to an IBM to Money Control. What did we do with them? We created a property called Selfie. We worked on buying earned media, created something called a Selfie Time for Big Survivors with stories, multiple papers, total coverage across India, about 85 odd. I've just put up 2-3 for references. We created Wi-Fi benches in Bangalore City. Bangalore City had Wi-Fi benches about 4 months back, which we partnered with a particular vendor and the Bangalore City, Bangalore Municipal Corporation. Anybody could sit on this bench, which was lit up even in the night at the CBD, and the bench had a Wi-Fi and you could take up a video on your smartphone. So the thing is, we were creating accessibility even if a person had a smartphone to put up his videos. Now we got a couple of cancer patients who are of a younger age group to come forward and put up this caption across saying, smile on survivor. So what we are creating here is the medical outcome that cancer can be survived. And who's saying this? I'm not saying this as an establishment, or my clinician is not saying it as a doctor. It is my patients who have actually overcome cancer who are coming up there and saying that I've survived cancer. Now we got a whole lot of people to brand with us. We got a co-branded activity done. So we also had something on movies now. There's a challenge with that video. I'll go ahead. We got Harley Davidson to do an org ride. We had close to about 100 odd bikers. We rode to 3-4 destinations. We took cancer patients who put up their videos for rides. and what we did next. We had movies now, unfortunately I'm not able to trigger this thing to open. We actually had movies now, which partnered with us for 330 movies across 1 month, 11 movies a day. Every opening of the movie had a survivor story for 60 seconds, and which said you can participate for this campaign. Now, what we did is, we had more than 150 videos on social media. Is the stigma of cancer there that if you achieve in a period of 50 days, 150 videos which are put up, where patients say that I overcome cancer, and these videos which are called the selfie, were on a site, were on a social media, were available for people to see, and there was a winner finally who actually got an Harley Davidson from a well-known cricketer called Harbhajan Singh, and this is the final award ceremony. Of course, totally there were 12 winners. Now, the impact, end of the day, you need to measure an ROI, you need to measure your campaign. The impact is from the day there was a cancer survivor from June 1st to 60 days, we measured 86% footprint across medias where we were present. The social media reach was 3 million. Money Control is a property which actually puts up a lot of things on financials in the online space. We were the only hospital to have a roadblock. This is the only campaign to have a roadblock, which created 5 million impressions. Now what we finally did, we raised 85 lakh rupees through this entire campaign on a CSV. We put it into an account. We are out to treat a number of patients through this particular fund, which also finally creates accessibility. But the beauty of the campaign was there was depth in it, the consumer saw value in it. Now the campaign did not have a rupee to be spent when we initially started, and the campaign itself sustained whatever revenues it had to generate to take care of some media spends like print of flex and other things. Now, I think there's an issue on the video on these. Okay, I'm not able to get that. Now, the campaign which we did was actually on an online platform. What we did post that is, we partnered with a publication to write stories of the 12 winners, which will be finally made into a 50-page book, which will come out in the offline space as a publication book, which will go by next year across to every cancer bed across India, wherever there's a patient, in 8 languages, 10,600 copies of them, co-published, written by 12 authors from the media, which will go across as a storyboard. These are some of the properties which I believe any healthcare brand can do. That is, if your USP is in cardiac, your USP is in neuro, get your own storyboard which you can tell. It could be a play, it could be a drama, it could be dumb charades, it could be improvisation, it could be anything. So we have about 3-4 plays which we have created at present. All the plays enacted, directed, produced by cancer patients. We have a property which we have created with multiple, the only property which is called the HCG Pinkathon. The PR of it is visible. We have an app which we have done. The entire thing is, how do we create accessibility today that a person can just download an app, create a community like TripAdvisor, get to know everything about cancer with a regular alert every 3 days. Now that again gets visibility if you have a product. Now you can also, as a cancer care brand, be within a nail polish bottle if you want to be. It also perceives whom you're trying to do. So we created a communicator which was around Color Bar, which is a brand. We were with a brand which is in lingerie products. Now there's a PR of it. The end of it is, even a cancer patient can be at 100 years if he is at the right place and the medical outcome talks for itself. Now I would submit here that trying to create the killer differentiators, I only picked up one, which is quality. But if you want to pick up, you need to pick up yourself on 12 different categorization of differentiators and try to understand, is this what I am in town for? Is my competition providing this? Or I am actually providing an USP that nobody else can copy. If your USP in healthcare is largely about clinical and medical outcome, and you create your entire environment around that one particular aspect, I don't think so you would go wrong. You shouldn't be creating communication which talks about comprehensiveness, which talks about machines, which talks about what the doctor could do, and where are you on your footprint. It really doesn't work. The single thing that the patient comes in for a tertiary care center is try to understand, can I be saved, or can I be cured, or will I be managed well? Thank you so much for a patient hearing.
Thank you, Dinesh, for a very wonderful talk. It's really interesting that how he turned around the concept of cancer among the society, which is considered as a stigma, which is the cancer stigma is no longer there.
One of the things that we see in hospital communication, and we see this with the medical community, is we display so a quick look at what's happening in the social media stream. This happened to the hospital. I don't have the time to play the full video. But this was an impromptu flash mob kind of a concert that happened in the hospital. Almost like a flash mob. Flash forward, fast forward. So this is the new form of advertising. Obviously, print, as earlier speaker spoke about, is dying. Social is picking up. So the kind of dimensions that I want to address is, how can we be different? And I'm going to present to you a case study of a hospital that we work with called Sunshine Hospitals out of Hyderabad, an orthopedic hospital which went on to become a multi-specialty hospital, went on to achieve greater success in the cardiology space. And my topic is called Seriously Funny. I think hospital people, doctors, generally people take themselves too seriously. So I see a lot of hospital communication with blood and gore being shown to patients. Patients don't want this. Research after research, when we ask patients, what do you want to see? They invariably say, want to think about happy pictures. They want to see happy images. Whereas most communication probably shows a very, maybe a huge cyber knife, a huge equipment, which is actually very, very scary for a patient. So the big idea today is, can the hospital administrators, all of you, can we all be brand custodians? So Sunshine Hospitals is what I'm going to talk about. And of course, brand is a very, very abused word. Virtually everybody talks about branding. They talk about celebrity brands. They talk about, there are people, there are companies who call up and say, I've got a blank wall which needs to be branded. Can you do that? So they're actually talking about doing some kind of a signage system. So today, one of the things that I'm not going to talk to you about is jargon. We're not going to talk about stuff which marketing guys typically speak. So I'm not going to tell you about segmentation, psychographics, positioning, stuff like that. I thought, let me show you some stuff that we've done where we brought in relevant differentiation. We're also going to tell you how did we go through the entire process. So I'm not going to talk about, yes, all these. So the question is, when people say that we need to build a brand, we sort of slash the word brand, and I say, how do we build trust? The overall idea is this. So how do we build trust? How do consumers, how do patients start believing in us a lot better? And I think one word that I can talk about is this. Can anyone guess this word? Oh yeah, somebody said this. Passion, exactly. So if we are passionate, if from top down, if we are passionate about something that we strongly believe in, that can be organically, authentically demonstrated across, I think we are in the right framework, right route map to build a brand. I believe that to be a great brand, it's not what you do. I believe it's what you choose not to do. A lot of people, a lot of companies would compromise on a lot of issues. So if you want to build a brand, you need to be very clear that these are things which I will not do, even if it means that my growth is going to take a little longer. Let me give you two quick examples. I selected one from Bangalore about a restaurant which branding is sacrificed. I selected one which is a restaurant called MTR. I believe in the times of emergency, when the government, long ago, the government said that the price of the products have to come down, MTR said, I would rather close my restaurant than go for a cheaper price because I believe in delivering a certain quality. So there was a sense of sacrifice. Let me give you another example. And before you go to the, okay, I should go on there, and the Indigo airline. Today when we talk of punctuality, timeliness, probably the first airline, possibly the only airline that comes into our mind is Indigo airline. And what Indigo does is, even when the flight is on, there are hostesses walking down the aisle and saying, please give your kachra so that we pick it up, so that we save time. So there is a certain amount of inconvenience to the passenger, but still Indigo says, let me go ahead and do it because I need to achieve punctuality no matter at what cost. If that's the level of passion that we have in terms of building a brand, I think we are in the right route map. These are some surveys that we've done where people say, don't show me gore, don't show me huge machinery on my communication. So it's happened time and again. Show me illustration. When there's a bomb blast, India Today typically shows an illustration, so that's a lot better. So if laughter is medicine, when we did Sunshine Hospital, we said we'll go through the humor route. We'll talk funny things. We'll make it a simple, happy equation for patients. So I want to show you a film which says, why don't we use humor more often? So can we have the film, the first one, which says, humor heals.
You got the world upon your shoulders. I'll be there to lift you with a smile, and I know we'll get by. Isn't that what love is for? I laugh with you when you're older. I stay with you when you're cold. I pick you up when the world lets you down. Isn't that what love is for?
It's impossible to laugh and worry at the same time.
Isn't that what love is for?
So that was a touching way of demonstrating how humor could work. Nice, happy pictures can actually communicate far more than gory, difficult pictures. So a quick look at the kind of process that we use. I'll not dwell into this longer. This is what we did for Sunshine, an orthopedic hospital. It's run by Dr. Guruva Reddy, and he's one of the largest, who does the largest total knee replacement surgery. So we came with this concept called happiness is happy knees. So we do a lot of wordplay in the campaign. I'll show you one more, which said we wanted to feature the entire specialist and said we are the largest joint family. And our heads, knees, hips, spine above the rest. So today, this runs on outdoor campaign in Hyderabad largely, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. And what happens across is that there is a certain amount of fan following for the kind of hoardings that come out with. So a lot of people come and say, hey, when are you going to come out with a new idea? And here's one more, a completely different cardiology hoarding. It says, she's gorgeous, but your heartache could be for other reasons too. So very subtle, tongue-in-cheek humor being used. This is the kind of brand tonality that we created for Sunshine Hospitals. When we did the logo redesign, we looked at a nice smiley picture coming across. So there is a strategy. There's a strategy to use humor. There's a strategy, and that's what gets communicated back in terms of redesign. We also did something at Sunshine Hospital. We wanted to, at one point of time, the top management said that all our patients are very happy. I think we should do a happy campaign. So we did something called an NPS score. The NPS score says this: if I call you up and say, well, are you likely to recommend me to somebody else? If I score 90%, I pass. If I score 80%, I fail. So when we did this study across for some of the patients of Sunshine Hospitals, we went back to the management and said, we score 40%, not 70, not 80, not 60, we're just scoring 40%. The top management was a little flapped about the whole thing. We went and called the heads of the department and we said, how much do you score? And most of them graciously admitted that they score about 30 to 35%, which means we were actually generous in giving them the points across. So we went back and said, if I'm scoring 35 to 40%, I can't be going around and putting up saying that we deliver happiness. We can't do that. So we went back to the drawing board and said, how can we alter the conditions back at the hospital? We need to understand where we are and start benchmarking higher. So we looked at which are the other hospitals that are there, what kind of delivery systems there are. Good news is most hospitals fail in delivery systems, fail in delivering happiness. So if that's the differentiator that we are looking at, that's a good one to go for, but the challenge is to demonstrate that in hospitals day after day is a huge challenge. We also looked at some of these things saying, there's a star doctor, everybody's coming for the star doctor, how do we take this across? I think we need to jump a little faster. So we were looking at, this is what the objective was when we did the study. How do we augment word of mouth? How do more people talk about us? Stuff like that. A little faster. So we looked at how do we stand in terms of infrastructure, in terms of doctors, technology. We did a scan across. We got some level of understanding. We knew we were good in most areas. The areas where we were not good and where a lot of other hospitals were not good was in terms of delivering patient delight. Customer delight in a than your purse. You need to jump a few slides. We looked at how effective are we in terms of web. It needs to be a perfect diamond shape. We were far from a diamond shape. We said this is the action map across. I just want to take you through the entire process of how we went about it. There was a strategy, there was a research, we understood what other hospitals were doing, we understood where our weakness was, and we started looking at addressing that part of it. We said, we need to build internal bandwidth. And if I need to do that, we as administrators also need to come together and say, can I deliver patient delight day after day? So like good coffee, it needs percolation, and we went right across and started doing an organization-wide exercise in saying, what should be the values of the brand? Should we be really talking about the happy patient? And so we had role play across multiple departments. We said, this is the brand promise that I need to make. We had a game, we did an internal game which started measuring patient satisfaction, patient delight, and we said the emotional factor that I'm going to talk about in Sunshine Hospital is happiness. Emotional release, positive energy, making patients happy. So the logo, right from your logo, the happy component continues. We had stuff like sunshine means Sankranti. So hoardings which typically connect with a lot of consumer, a lot of patients across. This was the internal study that we did. We had people actually participating. These are the values that the employees put together and said, this is what we need to deliver. Once we did that, we found actually patient scores going up. We put in simple stuff like having magazines for people to read. Earlier, we used to put magazines. Somebody would take away the magazine. We had a tie-up with some of the local magazine guys who would constantly replenish magazines at our hospital. Then we did this campaign which says, Sunshine makes everyone happy. Yep. I just wanted to also show you a quick example of how a hospital did direction boards in America. They said, hospital 127 kilometers away. So this was one idea of using humor, saying that don't drive fast because the next nearest hospital is actually 127 or 115 kilometers away. Use of humor. So this, if you see the kind of the way the colors were used, the kind of graphics, the way it was used, the kind of brand tonality was always consistent right across. Sunshine in our lives, nice happy pictures, no gory images at all. So consistency is the key in branding. We also went across and said we are the second largest joint replacement center in South Asia, and then we went on to build heart, lungs, brain, kidney, etc. So that was the extension. There was a clear-cut idea of an extension. We brought neurology, saying that this is how you can deal with a broken heart, not a damaged one. Our Heart Institute came in across. We had projected that about the hospital will take about 4 years to grow to the next building. We achieved that in less than 18 months. So there was a lot of traction. There was a lot of word of mouth that was happening because people were generally happy with the kind of, not only with the kind of promise that we were making, but the promise that we were living up at the floor. I want to take a quick 2 minutes on digital, and one of the things that we see, especially when I'm glad that Dinesh showed us some nice digital example. I want to show one example what happened right across. Digital is not, social media is not about how, it's not just about posting regular posts on Facebook and Twitter. It's all about getting earned media. So I want to show a quick one film on cancer again, and this is a wonderful example of how social can be used in the earning space. Yeah. I'm just skipping all these in the interest of time.
Graffiti is a powerful expression of urban art. In a city like Sao Paulo, where outdoor advertising is prohibited, graffiti stands out even more. With that in mind, AC Camargo Cancer Center, one of the most renowned cancer hospitals in Latin America, decided to use them as media to spread a message, a vital message. We scouted the city for graffiti containing female figures. And then, we used paste-up posters to hijack the drawings. With a simple piece of paper, we simulated the effect of a mastectomy on the graffiti and transformed them into an awareness message for thousands of people. The idea went beyond the walls, reaching major media channels in Brazil and websites and publications across the globe. But that was not all. Touched by the idea, some of Brazil's biggest graffiti stars reached out to offer their works as part of the campaign. The feedback was so positive that we created a website where artists from all over the world could download the campaign tag in different languages and carry out the intervention.
The study said this is the kind of impressions and what's the kind of impact it had on. So there is enormous opportunity in terms of social, in terms of doing innovative campaigns and taking it right across. We believe very strongly that a brand is all about delivering the right level of experience. One of the things that we as a company are doing today is we are developing an app right across which actually starts measuring. It uses Google location maps to actually find out. For example, if you call up, let's say, your room number 45 needs a blanket, and you call up your one of your paramedical team and say, please take a blanket and deliver it right across. If there's a simple app that's there in his mobile phone, and today smartphones are just about $2,000 in India, it's possible for the app to track which route did the office that person took. How did he deliver, and how did he deliver that blanket to room number 45, probably in 4 minutes. And you start actually rewarding people who start delivering that kind of an experience. We're still in the process of developing. We'll be too glad to send this app across to all of you people to sort of experiment and see if it actually works for you. And that's the level that we can take in terms of enhancing the experience. And if we do that, the results are, it could be fantastic. Thank you so much.